Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is July 2nd, 2023. And let's get to the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? So, happy Canada Day to all of you who celebrated yesterday. Again, I hope you had a good time with your family and friends. And let's get to the news, shall we? So, I wanted to talk a little bit about Kherson. It's going to be a quick update because there haven't been obviously many changes since Friday. And Kherson now, the pro-Russian channels are admitting that the attempts that they've been making in the last few days to dislodge the Ukrainian forces in Kherson on the left bank of the Dnieper River have been unsuccessful, which is great. So for the past week, the Ukrainians have established a bridgehead around the area of Dacha by the Antonivka bridge area. And they've been using the Dacha area on the left bank to essentially protect themselves from Russian artillery strikes, Russian counteroffensives, small counteroffensives here, because they were attempting to push out the Ukrainians from the left bank, and that has failed. And so the Russians now are deeply concerned because they're seeing that they're unable, they don't have the forces to push out the Ukrainians here, and they probably don't have enough artillery, etc., to push out the Ukrainians. And so obviously for them, this is concerning because their defenses here have been washed away due to the Kakhovka terrorist attack that they've caused themselves. So they shot themselves in the foot here. And now they have to consider perhaps transferring more forces from the Zaporizhzhia region to the Oleshky area because they know that for sure the Ukrainians are planning to do an offensive to take back Oleshky. If they take back Oleshky, this would mean that they would have a good staging area to start transferring heavy artillery, heavy tanks, and more ammunition, more troops to start a new front on this side in Kherson area. And so the Russians are in deep trouble. And yet again, this is going to be a good thing for the Ukrainian forces in Zaporizhzhia because I wouldn't have any doubts that the Russians will most likely start transferring some forces from Zaporizhzhia, the most accessible forces right now, into Kherson, again, weakening their defenses up north in Zaporizhzhia. So overall, this is great for the Ukrainian forces, and they need to continue pushing here. Now, it's it's not really meaningful what they control right now. It's kind of up in the air what exactly the Ukrainian forces control, because also this is very marshy land, very swampy, marshy, lots of sand. It's not something where you can really hold on to in terms of having a staging area. So they really need to push the Russians out of Oleshky and the outskirts of Oleshky in order to feel comfortable in continuing or starting an offensive operation. So we'll see what's going to happen. And already I'm seeing a lot more videos of the Ukrainian forces operating drones within Oleshky, dropping, the little grenades and bombs over Russian forces, small little groupings. So that's a really positive thing, is that they're within range of even operating drones within Oleshky. So all this is very positive. And so hopefully next few weeks, we're going to start seeing a lot of good developments around the city of Oleshky and the Ukrainian forces taking back the city, which would mean, step number one for them would be completed. Step number two is to create a staging area to start attacking, on different sides in the Kherson area. So that's the only map update I have for today. And I'll keep you guys updated next week as things develop as well in Zaporizhzhia and Donbass. Now, again, this is a topic I don't like talking a lot about, but we need to be realistic. And so the more time goes by, the more it seems like Russia's going to go ahead with this, which obviously is going to have serious repercussions, not only in Europe, but the entire planet. So Zelensky, is doing his best to really talk about the gravity of the situation, how important it is for Europe, NATO, and all the partners, Ukrainian partners, to get together and have a plan and how they're going to tackle this issue. So Zelensky yet again comes out and says that there's a serious threat because Russia is technically ready to provoke a local explosion at the station, which could lead to a radiation release. And obviously the radiation release would directly impact Europe. Earlier on Friday, Ukraine's military intelligence directorate claimed that Russian troops are reducing their presence at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, with staff told to relocate to Crimea and military patrols scaled back. the agency's chief, Kirill Budanov, has allegedly said that Moscow has approved a plan to blow up the station and has mined 4 of the 6 power units, as well as the cooling pond. So this is extremely concerning. And as I've said, right now it's 50-50. We don't know what's going to happen. But again, what the Russians did with Novakhovka Dam, now it's not like it would be a surprise if we would see the Enerhodar power plant blow up tomorrow or in 2 weeks or in a few months, right? Time is on Russia's side here. They can do it in 5 months, in 6 months, in 2 days, and that's how it took us by surprise with the Novakhovka Dam, is that we were already talking about it last fall, and then it kind of went, radio silence in terms of the news. Nobody really believed Russia would do it, right? And then they did it. And so here is Zaporizhzhia. It's really important with this power plant that there's going to be united, strong response. And unfortunately, with what happened with Novakhovka, I'm very worried that it's not going to be a strong response. And NATO is still going to put its head in the sand and pretend like nothing happened, right? And I really hope it's not going to be the case, because they won't have the choice, right? If this happens, God forbid, really, I really hope I'm wrong here. This is going to impact the entire European continent at the very least, right? We don't know where the winds are going to be blowing. They could be blowing towards Russia's side, which would be great, right? They're going to be shooting themselves in the foot, or they could be blowing to the west. And so it's really important that here NATO is going to take the reign and really going to make a strong or has prepared a strong response to this possible terrorist attack from Russia. And again, as I've said, you guys remember I made a video a couple weeks ago indicating that if Russia goes ahead with this, nothing stops Ukraine from invading Russia and creating a DMZ of about 30 to 40 kilometers at the very least. And especially with what we've seen with Prigozhin's mutiny, it's going to be a walk in the park. Russia simply cannot defend its borders effectively. And, invading Russia from Belgorod or Bryansk would be a walk in the park, in my opinion. And it would be a very beneficial thing, because that would destabilize Russia. And honestly, they just don't have the troops to be able to defend its borders. So I think that Ukraine needs to do this if it happens. And that's going to help stabilize Ukraine's borders, destabilize Russia, and also ensure that, there's no more of these Russian troops, crossing the border, just really effectively weakening Russian presence in Donbass. And also sending a message that this is not going to fly, right? And honestly, I really hope that if, God forbid this happens, but if Ukraine goes ahead with this type of plan, that the West is not going to be like, oh, Ukraine, you shouldn't be doing this. This is, again, an escalation. Like, who's escalating here? For the last year and a half, Russia has been the one always escalating in terms of doing terrorist attacks in every single different types of terrorist attacks, right? Attacking restaurants, maternity wards, destroying a whole electric dam that's flooded dozens of settlements, killed probably thousands of people. We don't even know the real numbers anymore. A complete ecocide of the Ukrainian territory in Kherson and Zaporizhzhia. And then, the West still has the balls to say that Ukraine can't be escalating, right? Because this is considered, if Russia goes ahead with this is also considered a nuclear attack, right? Like after this, like there's no more cards that Russia can play. They've played the last card they had, which was the nuclear weapons. And, blowing up a nuclear power plant is blowing up technically a nuclear weapon. And so after that, there's no more, cards that Russia can play. So I really hope that the West doesn't yet again try to tell Ukraine to not escalate the situation. And they even said during Prigozhin's mutiny that Ukraine, they were asking Ukraine to not, throw oil in the fire, because that would escalate yet again the situation, right? And Ukraine just constantly follows, the West's kind of demands. And I think that in this situation, there can be no more demands as to hold Ukraine to a certain level, to not attack Russia. It's really unfair. And I think Ukraine has the complete right to invade Russia if Russia goes ahead with this type of, with this terrorist attack. So let me know what you guys think. But this is extremely concerning to me. And it's horrible to think that this now is this has a high probability of happening. So yeah. Now, one last thing, and it's a positive note. It's the Ukrainian innovation, and I think that's really played a very large role in why Ukraine has been excellent and proficient, especially with its artillery. So the Barak system, which is a Ukrainian acoustic warfare system, essentially it has nothing to do with Barack Obama. Maybe the Russians are going to spin it into some conspiracy theory that Barack Obama funded this program. Anyways, so this has been a game changer for the Ukrainian army. And so what is the Barak system? It's a multifunctional audiometric system that helps to determine the exact coordinates of the enemy's firing guns for counter-battery combat, as this article mentions. And so it's a triangulation of the firing positions of your enemy. So you establish multiple microphones and sensors in a dense area where the current battle is ongoing, and it has powerful software that can detect where the enemy artillery pieces are located. And so the Ukrainians have really innovated in this field, and as this article mentions, it identifies the shot by the program. The developers, together with the military, made audio recordings of outputs from our artillery systems, similar to the Russian ones, right at the combat positions. Now, thanks to the system, the precise coordinates of firing artillery units and individual enemy guns are detected at distances of up to 30 kilometers. So this can detect enemy, firings from up to 30 kilometers. And not only that, this system can also now detect even enemy drones like the Shaheeds, which is great to detect, possible drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. And I think this has been a game changer, because this explains why, as well, the Ukrainian artillery is so precise and capable of really hitting the Russian position so precisely within 50 to 100 meters. And it's really game changer, because what we've seen from the Russians, they just dump artillery on a daily basis, right? They dump and dump and dump, and they don't really know where they're firing, right? We've seen these phone calls of Russians, calling, their beloved ones in Russia and saying that we're getting hit by our own, because they don't even know where they're firing at. And you can bet the Russians don't have any type of technology like this, right? Whereas the Ukrainians, their advantage is perhaps not the numbers of artillery and the ammunition, which is what the Russians have, right? The Russians can afford to fire thousands of shells and dumping them per day. And the Ukrainians just don't have that luxury, right? Because they are unfortunately heavily reliant on the West, and the West just doesn't have that capacity to make and produce the shells that Russia has been stockpiling for decades, right? Russia, even though they're resorting to very old stockpiles, they have hundreds of thousands of them left, and they still have the ability to produce shells. And the West only now has woken up and realized, holy crap, we don't have enough. And if there was a war, I don't know, with China, let's say, with Russia, we would be in deep trouble. So only now the West starts to, turn on its military industrial complex, but Russia's already is already there. So that's the advantage Russia has. But what kind of makes it an equal playing field now is that Ukraine has this innovative Barak system where they can preserve ammunition by exactly knowing where the Russian locations are and hitting them with fewer shells and being precise, and having, of course, better types of shells, right, from the West, including, obviously very accurate missiles such as the Storm Shadows, the HIMARS, the GLSDBs that are coming through as well. So that's the advantage that Ukraine has. And honestly, I hope that Ukraine is able to really provide, how should I say it? They should be able to provide this to the general market, right? Ukraine has proven itself as a very innovative military market. And, whenever there's a war, countries, become so innovative, right? War is one of the biggest motivators to achieve this technological edge over your enemy, right? So that's why we've seen some of the biggest developments in human history was through war. And so I hope that Ukraine, after this war, really develops a strong military industrial complex, because it's proven itself to be very innovative and has a lot of very innovative weapons. And I'm looking at, the BTR-4, which is a great, APC with a really great cannon, the Sturna ATGM missile system, where it can remote control this remote control guided missile, which is proven to be deadly against Russian targets. And now we have the Barak system, an acoustic warfare system that can detect enemy location from 30 to 35 kilometers away. It's really innovative. So here you go, guys. That's the video for today. Let me know what you guys think about this system. Do you think it would be useful in any other armies? And as well about your thoughts about the Zaporizhzhia situation, the nuclear power plant. Do you think that Russia is going to go ahead with this? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you for your support, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you and take care.